Well, the Bulldogs get ready to head back into the SEC, and my favorite SEC town in the Midwest, Columbia, Missouri, as the Dogs have to travel a long way to go play this conference game. But it's all good because Georgia's had a lot of success against the Missouri Tigers as of late. They've had a lot of success in that town in Columbia, Missouri. And this time they go in as the #1 team in the nation. They've won a lot in a row. They won all 4 of their games this year. This time, guys, DJ Shockley and Eric Zier, they go in after a little adversity against Kent State. Kind of unexpected, but Kent State, as Kirby told us, might be the best team that we've played. And they looked like it last week and gave the Dogs some problems, but Georgia survived and came out of it with a win. Before we get to Missouri, your thoughts on that last game and how the Dogs handled that adversity. Z, we'll start with you.
Yeah, well, Kent State was a different team for sure. I'm not sure if they're the most gifted team or the most athletic team or the most talented team just on paper in terms of personnel. But when you look at what they do scheme-wise in all phases of the game, they present a number of challenges across the board. I mean, defensively, you could see it early in the game. They were giving Stetson Bennett some fits just with how they were rotating into coverage, different looks that Stetson or really any quarterback's not accustomed to seeing. So you could see Stetson a little bit behind on a number of reads, on a number of throws that hampered him early in the football game. As the game went on, I thought Stetson really played a solid football game. And Kent State on the offensive side of the ball, it was, boy, just every look that you could get. They're moving people all around, different formation sets. So for a young defense that can present some challenges as well. I don't think Georgia came out and played its sharpest football game. I can guarantee you this, though, that game, without question, inside that locker room and inside the Butts-Mehre is being used to say, if we don't go play at our standard, anybody can come up and compete with us and anybody could beat us, especially as we get into the brunt of the SEC schedule. If we don't play at our level that we're expected to play, anybody can go beat us. So you have to have games like that through the year. You typically do have games like that through the year. If you can get away with a win, I don't care who you play, when you turn the football over 3 times, it can serve as a great lesson and a great reminder that we don't just throw on our helmet, we go out there and everybody's going to roll over. We've got a target on our back and we better be ready to play.
Shock, you were in the locker room for the game on Saturday. Is that kind of what the feeling was inside the locker room?
Yeah, Scott, before I get into my thoughts, I just want to say, Z, you look great, man. You got a haircut. I see looks really nice and tight right there. So you're looking really good, Z.
Try to look like you,
Go with the trend. Go with the trend.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what's interesting, Scott, you bring that up is after the game, I was expecting Coach Smart to have the kind of message that he gave after the Sanford game was, like Z just mentioned, we wouldn't play into our standard. But I think what Z brought up also was important was this was the team that you hear all the time about teams are multiple. This team was so multiple, it was not even funny. And I remember the first punt of the game from Kent State, and you see Ladd McConkey, and Z, you actually said it, and Ladd McConkey is like 20 yards away. And I'm like, I turned to somebody and said, is their punter just terrible or something? Like, is he going to punt at 15 yards? And he's like, no, they do so much with their punt. They change the formation every single time. And it was interesting to watch this game because it presented a lot of challenges. And then after the game, the message I thought was really good by Coach Smart. He said, even though, this was a game that we didn't play our best, I loved watching it. I love seeing you guys compete because we finally got challenged. This was a game where, we finally had to deal with some adversity. And through the first 3 games, they hadn't really had to deal with any adversity. And he basically put it in the form of, I don't want to have to wait till the end of the year when, he didn't say the SEC championship game, but he said, I don't want to wait till later in the year when, hey, that's when we first figure out adversity and who can handle it. So this was a game I thought that was good for him, that obviously you can see what guys would respond to some challenges or some adversity. And the guys responded in a positive way and put that ball game away. Obviously, the score wasn't they tell you about how Georgia dominated. And Z, you're right. They could have played a lot better game, but this absolutely was a game that Kent State Obviously, had already played Oklahoma, played Washington. Coming to Athens was not a huge deal for him. And in all three phases, they challenged you as a team.
Well, the Dogs go on the road again, so we'll play our first two conference games away before we've played one at home in Missouri. Let's take a look at that game now. And boy, you talk about heartbreak after the Auburn game. Missouri lost that game a couple of times. You know, once at the end of regulation when they miss a chip shot field goal by a very good kicker, and then in overtime when they fumble at the one, the ball goes into the end zone and Auburn recovers it, and Missouri comes out of there with a very difficult loss. Now they get to go back home and regroup and get ready for the number one team. What challenges does Missouri pose for Georgia?
I think first, just obviously you've been on the road at night. This is a different environment. You haven't been in that all year. Obviously, you got a lot of guys who have played some ball this year, but haven't been in this kind of environment, haven't been on the road, haven't been in the SEC, haven't been playing at night, hasn't had to wait a full day to get ready for a ball game and wait and sit in a hotel and see what that's about. So there's a couple different things that you have to worry about. Then when you get into the ball game, like you mentioned, this is a Missouri team, and Kirby mentioned it earlier this week, that they always play Georgia tough. They're always physical. They always get after, and they got some talented players. They got some guys on the perimeter that can make some plays against Georgia. I mean, they got some big, tall guys on the perimeter on the outside that can catch the ball for you. And you mentioned what they can do in special teams, but this is going to be an interesting ball game in the fact that, Eli Drink was going to have his guys ready to go. You guys seen his presser after the game. He just looked like he was distraught. Hair was going all different kind of ways. And you can tell it took a lot out of him. So it'll be interesting to see how they show up. But I think with the number one team coming to the country, number one team in the country coming to their place at night, they'll be excited for this type of matchup.
Yeah, I agree with Shock. I think the one thing that when you go play Missouri, it is going to be a well-coached football team that plays physical. It's a defense only giving up just over 300 yards per game. They know how to play the game. They are going to hit you. They are going to be physical. It's going to be an electric environment. You know, the one thing when you are the number one team in the country, especially when you're playing at night, when you go, the fan bases are going to be electric when you step into that stadium. So you're going to have a 12th man that you're playing. But it's, more than anything, this football team historically has been extremely physical, and they can make the game ugly if you let it. With just the talent that's on the field, it's another game that Georgia should win. We're going to say that all year long until we probably get into the Tennessees and the Kentuckys that are top 10 teams right now, and of course championship games if we're fortunate to make it there. But Missouri has the ability and the talent to make football games ugly. And when you're playing in their place, especially at night, if a crowd gets into it, momentum gets on their side, anything can happen. So really important for Georgia to quiet the crowd early, go out and establish their presence. And I'll go back to what we said at South Carolina. We've got to go out and leave a mark and make them want to quit. And if we go do that, it's a game that we should win. But you let this Missouri team hang around, they can beat anybody.
Georgia had 3 turnovers in the game last week for the first time, and we see what that can do. That's kind of the great equalizer, and certainly that wants to be avoided this week. What is the equalizer in this game, do you guys feel, outside of the setting and the night and the home and all that stuff on the field? What's going to be the equalizer, do you feel, that brings Missouri closer to Georgia or in the other direction?
Yeah, I think 2 things, for me that stand out. If we turn the football over, listen, we brought Kent State. That Kent State is not as good as Missouri when you think about the talent that's on the field. You have 3 turnovers against an SEC team, and you lose that battle, you absolutely bring the competition closer to you. And then I think the other thing too, and we've seen this a couple of weeks in a row right now, where we've had fake punts against us that have gotten an extra possession out of the game. Special teams and turnovers against a team like Missouri right now that, again, they're going to be physical, they're going to be well coached. If we lose those areas of the game and we allow Missouri to have extra possessions and don't get our offense on the field, that can bring anybody closer, and it will bring Missouri closer as well.
See, the last point you just mentioned is something that came to mind for me is when you look at Missouri, they got 3 backs over 150 yards, 3 backs averaging over 4 yards a carry. If we're not able to stop the run, we're not able to get them off the field on third down. If they're able to get that momentum going and keep our offense off the field with converting first downs and running the football and taking possessions away from us, that's going to be a big deal for them. That'll keep them in the game. That'll keep their crowd in the game, because that means they're moving the ball. That means they're taking, time away from us with our offense. And, when we're scoring 40 points a game, if we're not on the field, it's hard for us to score. So for one, I think we have to stop the run game here, because we know the run game creates everything else for any team, whether it's in the pass game, play action game, or whatever it is. And the last point I'll say is we got to be efficient in the red zone. Can't be kicking field goals, because if you kick field goals, that gives them confidence that, hey, we made a stop. They drove 75, 80 yards, and we held them to a field goal, and now this game is still close. You go down and you don't convert 2 or 3 times in the red zone, and then it's still a one-possession game somehow. That gives them tons of confidence. That keeps their crowd into it, and, tells them, hey, we can play with these guys and we can bore our necks off. We got to make sure we stop the run, I think, and be really efficient on offense in the red zone and score touchdowns.
Guys, what is Georgia doing offensively? We saw it again last week. We never had a punt in the game. Teams have not been able to really control Georgia's offense, to slow it down, to force them into fourth down situations. Why is that? What's going on with this offense that makes it so efficient and just keeps it tracking right down the field?
I think it's multiple things that go on. I think one is Stetson making good decisions with the football, making good decisions at the line of scrimmage, getting, this offense into the best play possible. And we talked about it when the season started. They give Stetson a lot of freedom at the line of scrimmage to get them into the best play possible when you're at the line of scrimmage. That's why you see, sometimes it comes down to 5-4 before Stetson actually snaps the football, because he's surveying everything and he's become really good at the line of scrimmage getting them the football. The other thing I think it is, Georgia's been explosive on offense. I mean, I think they got 57 plays of 10+ yards. They got 21 plays of, 20+ yards. So they're getting plays in chunks, and sometimes they're not even getting to third down. So when you convert in that kind of fashion, it makes your offense really good, and you're picking up chunky yardage plays. I mean, just think about last week, second play of the game, we hand the ball off to Brock, and he goes 75 yards. I mean, that's unbelievable that can happen at any given time. I feel like 1 in every 4 times we give him the football, he's going to end up scoring. But that's what happens with this offense, with the playmakers you have. It's not just 2-3 yards here every time. These guys are getting 7, 8, 9 yards a pop, and it's making it easier to convert these first and second downs, or even when you get to third down, you're in third and, 3 or less.
Yeah, Shock, to add to that, because I agree with everything that you just said. I'll go back to the personnel that we have creates such problems that when we do get into third down situations, we're able to move our tight ends into position and get the personnel matchups that we want, or take Kenny McIntosh and move him to a spot on the field that, again, puts the opposing defense in a disadvantaged situation where we have a better athlete going up against whoever it is that we're playing, that creates the one-on-one situations that we want, to give us a very high percentage to keep the chains moving or to have an explosive play. We're able to go hit opposing defenses from so many different angles and ways that it allows us to be explosive, puts us in a position that it's very, very difficult to defend against. I don't know how you defend us. I honestly don't right now. And Coach Monken, on top of that, has been masterful at how he's put game plans together, utilizing all of these different pieces to get them involved in the game early, and to put opposing defenses on their heels. And it's been fun to watch.
And I'll add one last thing, and see, you hit it on the head about Coach Monken. And the other part about it is we've only allowed 2 sacks in 4 games. How many times have we seen in these ball games where you get a sack and now you're, 2nd and 15, 2nd and 18? We haven't had those negative yardage plays like that. We haven't had where you get really behind the chains. So it makes it easier to move the football. So the offensive line done a great job of road grading people, creating those alleys, but also protecting Bennett. And Stetson's done a good job, too, of getting out of some plays, too, where it could have been some sacks.
And to follow up on that, Shock, we finally saw Georgia's defense get a couple of sacks last week, but through the first 4 games, for the most part, offenses are really getting that ball out quickly.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming that's the game plan against Georgia's defense. You got to get rid of the football. Don't give them time to get back there and to get our quarterback on the ground. You think we'll see that out of Missouri? Or, this is more of a team, I think, at least from previous games, watching their previous games, it's more of an old style traditional type of football. They really like to run the football.
Yeah, I think they're an old style at heart, but I think with every game, you got to have a game plan. And when you come in playing against this kind of defense, this style of defense, the players that you have over there, you got to change it up a little bit. You're not going to be able to run right at this Georgia defense and think you're going to have success, and then you turn around and it's 2nd and 9, and then you turn around and try to run it again, and it's 3rd and 6. I mean, it's going to be tough on you all ball game if you're trying to force that run game. I think the blueprint is absolutely, you have to get the ball out of your hand. You have to move the quarterback, because if you're sitting back there in the middle of that pocket, those guys are hunting, those guys are thirsty. They're going to come get you. And that's going to be one of the things that we've seen the first three, 4 ball games is quarterbacks retreating, quarterbacks getting rid of the football, throwing it away. But this is a defense that absolutely wants to get after you. If you don't get rid of the football and timely stuff, and that's where Kent State has success. Think about all the RPO stuff that we saw, and the ball was getting out quickly, throwing those quick slants, throwing east and west on those little bubble screens. The ball has to get out of your hands, because they know if you hold on to it like they did in that first series, you're gonna get sacked and you're not gonna have a good offensive possession.
And I think the one other thing that we're starting to see from this Georgia defense as well, the first couple of games of the year, we were very vanilla. We didn't bring many blitz schemes, many dog schemes with linebacker pressure. We sat back and let all of these young guys dip their toe in the water, get their feet wet, played very, very vanilla just so they could play fast. Against Kent State, we started to see, I think we saw more blitzes or more dog packages, so linebacker pressure, than we saw combined in the other games that we have played this year. That is part of the reason we haven't been able to go get after the quarterback. Quarterbacks have, without question, been getting the football out of their hand. Spencer Rattler was on retreat the entire game when we played South Carolina and just throwing the ball away. So that has led to it to some extent as well. But Georgia's also, it looks like we're gaining that confidence. Guys are getting more comfortable. We're going to get more multiple as well. That will lead to more sacks as the season progresses.
It's Georgia and Missouri coming up Saturday night, 7:30 start time in Columbia, Missouri. Our broadcast on the radio starts at 3:30 Saturday afternoon on the Bulldog Sports Network. We hope you can join us, and then join these two gentlemen and myself for the call of the play-by-play there at 7:30 when the Dogs and the Tigers get going. And it's SEC for a long stretch in the schedule, so everything is big from here on out until we get I think the last non-conference game, the only one remaining, is Georgia Tech, so that's still a long way away. But conference games are important, and it starts this weekend in Columbia, Missouri. Shock, Z, thanks very much, and join us on the radio this weekend for the Bulldogs in Missouri. And go Dogs!
Go Dogs!
Dogs.